I think if you understand your attachment and you understand why do I value relationships and put more effort into my relationships than I do my relationship with myself? Why do I do that? Where does that come from? How can I
Oh,
fix
wow.
that?
What a
Things like
powerful
that,
question.
right? So it's like, how can I work on that and make sure that moving forward, I'm not going to have healthy relationships with other people if I don't value myself. I'm going to choose people who don't value me. Straight up.
Look, hell of an intro. I tell you what you in for, but I never really been the type of dude to give no info.
Welcome to the Walk and Grill Show, everyone. It's Roney and Courtney on the mic. And as Courtney would like to say, we're going to start this off by saying, how is your heart? And I don't know. You got to give credit where it came from. I don't remember. Do you remember the podcast
Yes.
it came
So
from?
I've been listening to a podcast. It's called the Bird Brain Podcast with Isaiah Frizzell.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he got it from somewhere, but that's where I heard it, and I loved it. And I think I mentioned to you, he's like, "How's everybody doing? How's your heart? Did you eat today?" And I was just like, so sweet, just things that we really care for each other, and ask the deeper questions. So yeah.
Right. And we like to give where credit is due over here, so we're not going to take anything and not give credit where it is, where it's supposed to be, simply for the fact that we want to take credit for it. Because again, this is a whole journey thing. This whole thing we call life, it's for us to do it together. If you want to do it by yourself, see ya. But I'm more than happy we do it with a group of people, because then that's going to enable me to make great impact. So come on board, whoever you're thinking, whoever that, hit right on the head. I was like, yeah, I agree with that. Reach out to us, let us know, DM us. Don't forget, do all the beautiful things they make you do on social media. Like, comment, subscribe, leave us those reviews. You guys been slacking on those lately, I will say.
Yeah.
It's been a while, and I gotta point out, for those that are listening on a regular basis, and you know who you are. I know who you are as well. You guys been slacking on those, but how is your heart, Courtney?
My heart is doing well. Let's see. Just that's kind of.
She doesn't want to say good anymore.
My heart's good. That's the whole point of this question, is to not do that. But no, it's good. I'm just thinking. So immediately, even though I kind of posed the question or kind of shared the question with you, as you asked me, it automatically went to like, who am I going to see today? Who am I going to spend time with today? Which is interesting. Like, it automatically brought me to like who I'm going to get to spend time with, which actually, whoa, wait a second. That is exactly what we're talking about today. That's a clear indication of exactly what we're talking about today. So that's kind of funny, how important those relationships are to me, and how heavy they are in my heart. So I get to see my team today, so that's exciting. A couple of my teammates anyway, and spend some time, play some rugby. Nice. So that's exciting. That's where my heart is today. What about you? How's your heart?
I'm very curious in relation to the question that you posed to me, and I was just like, this is a whole new world. I've never even thought about this. So I'm very curious to see, where does my heart really lie, right? And it's kind of like confused at the same time, so curious and confused, and just trying to get a bit of an understanding more of, not necessarily who I am, I guess, but it's just like, where is my heart really lying? Like, where is it in this world, in the spectrum of this thing we call life? Is it in a place where I think it is, or is this just all imaginary or assumptions that I'm making within myself? But that's kind of where I'm at with it, and I will say it's a great question that you posed, and it opened up my eyes a bit more, to really see, how is it that I am on a daily basis with the relationships and the business relationships that I do have on a regular basis. So that's where I'm at.
I think if you think about, like, how are you, and I know we kind of talked about this previously, but how are you? You think about yourself, you think about like, how am I feeling? What's going on with me? When you think about like, how's my heart? It's just on such a different level. And to me, it's like, I want to care for my heart. I want my heart to be happy and healthy. But when I think about me, it's like, well, I'm fine, whatever. But you can't do that with your heart. Like, you need to really care for your heart. And like, even like my hands are automatically like, oh, it's so like, you have to like care for it, like, I don't know. It's weird, but
I mean,
Gotta,
we all know the consequence of not taking
yeah,
care of your heart.
absolutely.
So, I mean, you're gonna want to take care of it, and I think we should even say the same thing about
Mm-hmm,
your brain. You know, take care of your brain, take care of your mind, your
mm-hmm,
body, your soul, do all that stuff, because all of that is going to really pertain to your
mm-hmm,
existence.
for
You
sure.
know, reality. Sorry to go there really quickly, but
Getting deep already. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good question. It allows us to
yeah.
get a little bit, more into it and start the conversation on the right foot. We'll go from there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, I kind of want to get right into the conversation today, which you brought it up to me, and you used this word attachment, and you said the you love the topic because again, it's so much of kind of what you lived through. It's kind of your journey. And to me, when you said it, I was very confused as to like, all right, well, what are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about? Like attachment to
Yep.
what? To
Yeah.
who? Like, and that those are the first things that went through my mind, and so I kind of wanted to throw it back at you to see like what is it that you meant when you even
Mm-hmm.
said attachments to people or just attachments in general. I don't want to kind of steer
That's
you
okay.
in any direction. I kind of want you to say what it is that you want to say when you're saying
Yeah.
attachment in general.
So I did tell Ronnie this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and when I
Yeah.
say that, I mean mostly professionally, just because I know the
Okay.
impact that it has on my teens. I know the impact that it has on kids, and so on and so forth. And the reason that I know that is because when I found out about it, when I learned what this is and how it impacts you, it was literally like the answers to everything. Like it just,
Mm.
and when I ask these questions to my teens now, or the fact that I know this, the fact that I understand attachments now
Yeah.
and I know different attachment types and attachment styles, my teens will tell me something that happened in their lives, or some, a blip of information, and I'm like, do you respond this way? Or do you, when this happens, when you experience conflict, do you tend to do this? And they're like, yeah. And then I'll ask them another question. They're like, how did you know that? And I'm like, you probably have an avoidant attachment style or something along those lines. So it just gives so much more context. It gives a little bit of like your past, your experiences without me really even needing to know them. Um, so, but I think the main thing for me is it attachment really is going to come down to, and this conversation is going to be about our relationships with other people. And I just, like I said earlier, that's why I kind of thought that was funny. Is my relationships with other people are very important when we talk about relationships. And I've heard myself say this a million times because my teens automatically assume it's like my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whatever your intimate partner. But when I say relationships, we're talking parents, we're talking siblings, we're talking coworkers, friends, your teacher, your tutor, whatever. Those are all relationships, and we attach to everybody in a certain way. So yeah, it just
So, are you saying a lot of how we navigate our lives just moving forward, a lot has to do with our previous and past
yes.
relationships?
So
And so, there's no way of like, I guess, improving or at least, looking at a past relationship and saying that has no impact on,
it
today?
absolutely does. Well, and you're never going to
Mm.
get a therapist to say you can't fix stuff. You can fix anything. So
I try to get you
no,
there.
not today, not today. But no, you absolutely can, and that's why I love attachment work. That's why I love focusing on this stuff, is because it's really hard. Not that you have to have the answers for everything, but it's a lot harder to heal from things and just feel better about things, process things when you don't understand why it happened. And there's going to be a lot of things
Yeah.
in our lives that, especially when they're out of our control or it's things that happen to us, you're never going to understand why those people did those things, right? But when we make decisions, when we fall into patterns, and that's what it comes down to for me specifically, talking about attachment, is my relationship patterns. I know they're faulty.
Mm.
I know they're not great. So why am I doing them? Like, I can see it happening, but I don't understand why it's happening. So it's really hard for me to fix it until I understood attachments,
Yeah.
until I
Right. Right.
understood, oh, okay, people with this type of attachment are going to act this way. And they typically tend to seek out people with this type of attachment who acts the exact opposite way, which if I look back at previous relationships, that's exactly what's happening. So now that I know these things, how can I heal from having that type of attachment? How can I, act accordingly, or how can I be less of this type of person, so on and so forth. And where does it come from? And I think attachment gives us a lot of those answers.
And so you made me take this assessment, and I got my attachment
I
style.
made
You have your
you
attachment
take
style.
this.
Yeah, she guys, I kid you not, she says if you don't do this, like it was a whole threat, and I was just like, whoa, I've never seen this out of Courtney before. So, guys, I don't know. There's a whole nother side to her that you guys better be aware
I have
of.
never heard such an detailed lie come out of your mouth. Wow.
Are you kidding me right now? You're gonna sit here and say that was a lie? There's
I was
no
like,
way
we're
you're
going to
doing
talk
this.
about attachments.
That
So
is.
if you want to take this quiz, I'll send it to you.
Oh, please. If that's what you want the people to understand.
Two sides.
There's always two sides of the story. It's up to you to figure out which one is right. But yes, there's an assessment that Courtney mentioned that, hey, I should take, and I took it. And so there's, as you mentioned, there's multiple different styles to it, attachment styles. What are those? I think you said there's 4 of them.
So, one reason I actually get a little bit confused is because I work with teens, and then I took it as an adult. So as an adult, the ones that show up for me are secure, anxious, and mine comes out to be anxious, so it ends up being anxious / preoccupied. And then I said secure, anxious. There's avoidant, and there's disorganized. And then sometimes with teens, it'll come up with other stuff too. That's why I get confused. But I'm, of course, more familiar with mine just because I've read into it a lot more. And I'm pretty familiar with avoidant because I know a lot of people who are avoidant, and a lot of my teens are avoidant. So we've had conversations about that a lot. But yeah, those are the 4 types.
So can you break down of like, maybe not so much of outside of yours, because that's where your expertise and your knowledge stands. It's what your kind of attachment styles for those individuals that are wanting to know. I guess was the anxious and avoidance. Is that what it is?
Well, anxious, preoccupied.
Yeah.
And then that's okay. Anxious and avoidant are the opposite, so they wouldn't be together. And I'll talk about those two because I think they're going to be the ones that you see most often. I think disorganized is just kind of a difficult combination where you may, I guess that's kind of the opposite of what I just said, but regardless, where you may attach to some people and just very quickly avoid others. So I believe, again, I'm not completely sure, but that could be disorganized. But yeah, specifically for anxious, basically what it says is, just like I mentioned earlier, you take your relationships very seriously and you give a lot. You tend to be the giver. You tend to be the one who is scheduling, let's hang out. When can I see you? When can we be together? You might feel, and it's of course it's going to look a little bit different in adulthood where we don't want to be as clingy. Nowadays in the dating world, there's all these games that unfortunately people play where it's like, they just texted me, but I'm going to wait like at least 15 minutes. Like I can't look a certain, it's just ridiculous. But
I can't look desperate.
Yeah, I can't look desperate. I can't look clingy. I can't be crazy. And it's like, yeah, you're crazy because you were on your phone but anyway. So, and that kind of goes into that anxiousness where it's like, I don't want them to leave me. I don't want them to abandon me. I don't want to feel, I want them to love me like I love them. And how could I be sure? Are they talking to other people? That's what it comes down to, the anxiousness. But yeah, mostly just kind of that like clingy and that need for validation in relationships. And
so I don't want to just talk about relationship. I don't want to cut you off there, but just speaking of friendships, then I have a great friend of mine who does really well as bringing us all together. And so in that situation, is that a person who's just anxious to be around, I guess, his brothers or like, people that he called good friends, or is that him being clingy? Like what is that?
I mean, it really just depends. He could absolutely be secure. Yeah. I mean, people like having relationships. And again, when I say relationship, I'm not talking about anything I just said. I'm not necessarily talking about dating. You can be clingy with friends.
Yeah.
You can be clingy. I've absolutely had friendships where I'm like, they never asked to see me, and I ask to see them all the time. Or I remember, I'm sure in middle school, it's like, you're my best friend, so I'm your best friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that type of thing. So you can
Yeah.
absolutely feel this way in any type of relationship. Siblings could feel
Mm.
this way towards their parents, or things like that, where it's like, mom likes me better. Just things
Yeah.
like that. These things play out in all different areas, but it's very possible. I mean, especially if it's just like, hey guys, we haven't seen each other in a while. Let's go. I do that with a group of my like guy friends, where it's like, it's been like 5 months. Can we get brunch? Like, I'm not anxiously
Yeah.
attaching to them. I haven't seen them in a while. So I feel like those relationships
Mm.
are pretty secure because you know where they stand, and you don't necessarily need more out of it. You already feel the value that's there. So he may be secure, and he may just want to see you. So
Mm. Yeah.
just because people want to see you and spend time with you, and build the connection or whatever.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
label to it. It's just the person who they
absolutely.
are and then wanting to build out that relationship. That's what it kind of
Yeah.
sounds like to
And
me.
I've had friendships where like we live in different states or different areas, and we check in on each other like every other week, or we check in like we FaceTime every other week. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's not a clingy person. That's just, we decide to check in because that's what fuels our relationship. That's what continues that relationship. So
Hmm.
yeah, not every action that everyone does, or not every choice that people make within a relationship is going to be like, oh, that's because you're anxious, right?
Well, if it's repeatable, if it's something that it's just who that
Hmm.
person is, it's common nature for that individual, then I think you can at some point
Yeah.
put a label on it.
Yeah, but
No?
I don't think in terms of like, oh, he wants to hang out with everybody. That's very anxious of him. It's more of, I don't see it as individual actions, I see it as patterns. And it can be hard
Got it.
to observe your friends' patterns in relationships or within friendships, just because you're not there to see every single one of them. But if you look at your own patterns
Hmm.
in your own relationships, your own friendships, your patterns of how you set boundaries with family members, how do and that's a big deal for a lot of people, is like, I can set boundaries with family, or I can set boundaries with, like, if I am going on dates, I have hard boundaries with those type of people. But then my friends treat me like whatever, and my parents, I hate the way they talk to me. Just as an example, like, it
Yeah.
really just depends on where those, like I said, those boundaries lie. But yeah, there's lots of different
Oh,
routes.
this is a really great learning session for me. I mean, if you guys aren't learning with me, then that means you guys must have this all understood. So forgive me. I'm sorry if you're like, man, Ronnie, what is wrong with you? Why don't you know this stuff already? I never really looked into it, to be honest with you. And after I took the test, I came back with, as Courtney would say, wow, you're rare, because she said at least it said I was secure. Whatever the heck that means, that's what my attachment style came back with. And Courtney was just literally saying like, yeah, man, that's, I guess, one of the
Mhm.
best ones to have, is it
Well,
not? Or, and for those that are like, oh, I don't believe you, Ronnie, blah blah blah. Here it is for the people on YouTube. Can you see that? Yeah, yeah, there it is.
I don't know if I've ever heard anyone brag about their attachment style, but okay. Um, have at it.
I just don't want anyone to think I'm
Do
lying.
your thing.
That's all.
No, um, well, of course, for me, someone who is anxious and I've seen how it has impacted my life, of course, I'm like, yeah, you're better than me because you're secure. But it's not necessarily like a ranking system. It's just, there's secure, and then the other options are all insecure forms of attachment. So we all strive to be secure.
Mm.
We all want to be secure, but there's different ways. I through our conversations, through different episodes and everything that we've done, we know that we are very different in terms of our relationships and
Yeah,
experience we had
yeah.
this morning in terms of setting boundaries and conversations with others. I was like,
Oh
okay,
yeah,
which is,
man,
it's fine,
please.
right? It's not like I wasn't upset with you, or I wasn't like, wow, Ronnie's a jerk. Like, it's not like that. It's
Yeah,
just, that's not how I would have acted. And I think
yeah.
it's just because
That's so
the
funny.
way that we look at,
That's so funny.
we could tell the story if we want.
Oh yeah, I would love to, just to give some sort of context. As you guys know, I set, well, you guys, some of you may not know, but for those that do know, I set very firm boundaries over my time. Don't play with my time. It's just that simple. If you want to do something with me, I'm more than happy. Hey, let's go do it. Let's talk about it. I'm here for anyone and everyone. Just respect my time just as much as I would respect yours. And that's really what it comes down to. It's the moment and the time that you just cannot have a certain level of respect for my time and what I have to do throughout my day. And I'm carving out time for you. If you don't show up, I mean, like, I'm sorry. Like, I kid you not, it will become a point in time where if I'm ever in a business meeting, I don't care how much money's on the table. If you don't show up on time, I'm out of there in a couple of seconds. Like, we set a designated time to speak. Why is it that you cannot show up when we decided to speak? I don't get it. Is it like am I living in the fairy tale right now where it's like, that's just, or am I just ranting, or am I being am I not being logical? Like, these are the things that I question. And as you guys can kind of hear, I set very firm boundaries. So that kind of happened to me. It happened to us actually. And how I reacted, as Courtney mentioned, she would not react that way because I literally was like, "Hey, I give this person to this time. If you don't respond, I don't see you. Then hey, this thing never happened. Moving on with my life."
Yeah.
It's
And
just
like
that
I said,
simple. Courtney was like, "What? Are you gonna call him?" No, I'm not. I'm gonna move on with my life. Are you kidding me?
that was me. Why did you do these hands? Oh
Oh my
no!
goodness.
Wow. Anyway, I wasn't like scared. That's so funny. I wasn't like scared. I was just like, okay, I'd probably call him. Like, I'd probably try one more time before we're done. But I wasn't like, I wouldn't have sat there for an hour and like called and been like, I really want this opportunity
Yeah.
for you. Like, it's not that we don't baby people. We don't, it's just for me and everything I've been in as a student, as a teacher, as a therapist, my rule's 15 minutes. And not that has to be my personal rule, but that's just any role I've been in. It's a 15-minute cutoff. So just things like that, where it's like I've never even thought of that in my personal life, where it's like if I'm expecting a phone call, there was a time last week they said they were going to call me. I waited an hour and a half. I wasn't
Yeah,
sitting
you're crazy.
around. I wasn't sitting around. I was doing other things, but I kept looking at the clock like, okay. So
Yeah. That's a red
yeah,
flag for
I
me.
didn't,
I pay very close
well,
attention to that stuff. Even my clients
mhm,
that I work with, if you're late to my call, I've taken a note
yeah,
already, and not to be very judgmental on anyone, but it's just like, all right, again, as you guys know, I help people buy homes and sell homes. If you really want to buy a home or sell your house, then I think you're going to want to show up for somebody that's going to be
yeah,
able to help you do that. And so if someone doesn't show up on time, or just throughout the call they're not even paying attention, I take note of all of these things because it's really showing who that person is. And at the end of the day, it's up to both of us to decide if we're even going to work together.
yeah,
That's it. My piece is way more important than any dollar sign you can throw in
yeah.
front of me. So
And that it makes sense, and it does
yeah.
go into like if and I know we've already had these conversations, but if this was the first conversation we had about it, I would have guessed secure or avoidant, just from this conversation. And you being able to set firm boundaries, like you said, you know what you need, you know what your expectations are. Those are signs of someone who is secure and who just is able to, like I said, kind of do your own thing and understand your own needs and go from
Yeah.
there. But we got a little off topic with
But
that.
don't get me wrong though, because I will say though, even if someone doesn't respect that time at that point, being at that time at that moment, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
avoid you and just say no, you didn't respect my time and I'm not gonna
Hmm.
pay you no mind. No, it's another day. It's another
Yeah.
24 hours. Everybody deserves, in my opinion, another second chance or a third or whatever the case may be. Maybe not
Hmm.
so many chances, but someone deserves another opportunity. So it's just like I look at it as, hey, today I'm sorry, today's just not going to work anymore. We're gonna have to find another day that's going to work for all of us to speak on
Yep.
that aspect. So I look at my 24 hours as just that's what it is, and I'm sorry, but there's no more time left for
Yeah.
you. So let's find another day and time that works for
Definitely.
everyone. And I don't want the impression of, hey, Ronnie just doesn't really want to speak to me, because no, that's not the case. It's more or less just respect my time, I'll respect yours, and if it doesn't work,
Yeah.
let me know. Hey, it
Hmm.
doesn't work. Can we reschedule? Sure, man. Let's do it. It's so easy to get things off my
Yeah.
calendar and on it, and that's where it really comes down
Communication.
to.
Just
So
being honest and
yeah,
communicating with people. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
One thing I
Yeah.
do want to say in
But yeah.
terms of the avoidant, and just to kind of be clear, with these conversations, because I enjoy them so much and because I look so much into them and have so much information, I feel like I don't always share with, the information
Mm.
that's like people don't learn this stuff often. And with being avoidant, it's not that you're like avoiding people. You're not like walking away from people. You're not avoiding contact or things like that. It's more so these attachment styles more so come up in conflict. So you can have a positive relationship with somebody, but then in conflict, what? So you get into an argument, and
Mm.
again, we'll just have a friendship as an example. You get into an argument with a friend,
Yeah.
or some, level of disagreement or whatever. What is your response? What do you tend to do? And if
Yeah.
you tend to avoid and you tend to like, F that, I'm out. We're not even talking about this.
Yeah.
If you think about an intimate relationship, do you walk away? Do you ignore it? I've had partners in the past who are like, I'm good. Like, you're clearly not good. Like, and it's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
good. It's gone. Nope. See, I already forgot about it. Like, nah, you're just lying, and you're pushing stuff
But
down, and you're avoiding it, and that's what you're doing.
yeah. In that situation, though, I think sometimes some people are just not ready to speak, because I've had the same circumstance happen to me before. It's like, yo, I know you're not good. And I was like, yeah, I'm not, but we'll talk about it. I'm just not, I don't want to talk
Okay,
about it right
so
now.
that's the
And that,
communication piece. Is you're not good. That
yes, that is, that
I
is.
that is where the secure part comes in. Is I'm not happy about this right now, but I don't feel like I'm ready to have this conversation. And that's a skill that we
Mm.
use. This is actually a skill that I learned when I did an offender treatment program. So I was working with offenders of domestic violence, and we talked about the difference between walking away and taking a timeout when it comes to relationships and conflict. And there's a difference between when you're in a conflict, just walking away and being like, nope, I'm good, I'm done, and saying, I just need some time. I'm going to go for a walk. And when I get back, we're going to talk
Mm.
about it. Or I'm going to go take a shower.
Yeah.
I'm going to cool off. I'm going to, whatever I need to do. We're going to talk about it when I get back. Or we can talk about it in the morning or something like that. But being able to communicate
Yeah.
those things, that's the difference. Avoiding it, walking
Yeah.
away, acting like things are fine. That's the avoidant piece. Where on my side, I'm not going to act like I did everything right. On my side, I'll be the one who's like, we need to talk about this now. Like, because I'm anxious about it. I'm the one who's
Jeez.
anxious about it. And I don't pry. Like,
You're going to
no,
pressure people
no,
into
and
things?
that's what I have learned. Previous Courtney did, I'm sure. It was like, why don't you want to talk about it? You don't want to make it better. You don't care as much as I do. Right? That's how I used to feel, was like,
Mm.
you must not care if you don't want to talk about it, which I now know is not true. It's just a very different way of looking at it. They were avoidant. I was anxious. That's why I
Yeah.
always wanted to see it, to discuss it. But to me, it's like, if there's space between us, if there's this thing that's between us right now, that's hurting me because I'm anxious and I don't want to lose you. That's part of that anxious attachment.
Huh.
So that's kind of how those things play out. But I also want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about just not knowing about this. That's why I feel so strongly about it. And I think I mentioned to you, attachment styles and love languages are two of my favorite things. And the reason for that is because people don't talk about it. So when I learned it, I was shocked because people don't talk about it. And it's so important. It can help you so much. And
Yeah.
so my thing now is I want these teens to know about it. I want them to understand where their patterns are coming from, why they feel the way that they do, attaching or understanding. Now I'm using this word all over the place. Understanding that, okay, the relationship that I had with my parents or the relationship that I had with whoever it was in early childhood is impacting me now. How can I change that so that my relationships are healthy moving forward? We had talked about previously some different experiences in terms of domestic violence, in terms of sexual abuse, in terms of just control and lack of boundaries in relationships. And I think if you understand your attachment and you understand why do I value relationships and put more effort into my relationships than I do my relationship with myself? Why do I do that? Where does that come from? How can I fix
Oh, wow.
that?
What a
Things like
powerful
that,
question.
right? So it's like, how can I work on that and make sure that moving forward, I'm not going to have healthy relationships with other people if I don't value myself. I'm going to choose people who don't value me. Straight up. So that's really what it comes down to. So how do I value myself? And when I get to that point, how do I choose the correct people so on and so forth, to make sure that they're valuing me as well. And that's what's going to, this is my whole soapbox, because once I had those experiences, it was like, what do we need to learn? What topics do we need to cover so that I can somehow, some way make an impact and decrease the number of domestic violence situations, decrease the number of teen dating violence, experiences that I'm witnessing and observing in schools and things like that. And I really, truly believe that these type of conversations and understanding why we are the way that we are in our relationships can help to improve those things.
Mm-hmm. But it's also important. Yes, you can know it, but it's also important to implement it as well. And the reason why I say that is because, hey, you can know all of these different sort of attachment styles, but if you don't know your other partner's attachment style, better yet, if you don't know your other partner and you haven't taken the time to really understand and get to know them, then you're going to have a really, really tough time just doing anything. And so even these different situations that you hear of and come across, and I say it all the time to all my friends who are like just looking for partners in life, take your time. I always say it, just take your time, get to know the person. I've had a friend say to me before, be my friend before you try to do anything with me. And it's one of those things that it had to stick with me. And I was just like, what do you even mean by that? And it's just break it down. It's like, get to know me. I mean, you're trying to, find out, oh, my name isn't who I am, right? My hobbies isn't who I am. Like, there's so much more into my favorite color isn't who I am, but there's so much more into just who a person is rather than just, the things that we look for or those general basic questions that we ask. And so I want to just throw that out there. Just, hey, get to know the people you're going to surround yourself with. Know what do they even want? Does it even align with you? What are their principles? I mean, geez, that's a strong question in itself. Ask somebody, what are your principles? What are your life principles? Does it align with yours? If they don't have their life principles, then maybe you sit down with them, you try to figure it out. Because then that could tell you a little bit more about them that maybe you weren't even fishing for. And so, or at least you were going to be aware of.
I think when you say that, it sounds like you assume that people already know those things about themselves. And so many people don't. Really, truly, so many people don't. So, just getting to understand those things with yourself first. And I do, try to make it fun activities with my teens, but really what it is what are you looking for in a partner? What are you looking for in a best friend? What are you looking for in, just someone that you hang out with? Literally, it could just be like, if you are going to spend time with somebody, what are some things that they need to bring to the table? A very easy thing. They're not disrespectful towards me. Okay, good. Right? Because sometimes it's like, it doesn't matter. If I'm going to spend time with somebody, it's fine. It's like, okay, so someone who is disrespectful towards you, or someone who, one thing that's important to me is that they respect my profession. There are people who don't believe in therapy, and just like, that's stupid. I know people, when I graduated with my social work master's, they were like, that's useless, and just like, they just truly don't believe in that. And that's not someone I want to spend time with, just because to me, it's like, you don't even understand. It's a lot of, not that everyone's profession has to be who they are as a person, but mine is. It really is. And this is connecting right back again to the topic, because I have an anxious attachment style, which means that I put others before myself, and I'm always there to kind of care and help and nurture others. I ended up a social worker. Like, I ended up a therapist. I ended up bringing that into how can I help other people, because I saw that in my relationships. I saw that I was very, like I said, nurturing and giving, and how can I do something that I enjoy, and of course make money with it, but make, as Leon brought up, not very much money with it, but anyway, so, but it just, the reason I keep bringing it up is because it just shows how it continues to impact so many different factors of your life. And like I said, it all comes from childhood. It comes from the way that we attach to our caregivers, and the different emotional attachments that we had. And I think that's one thing that makes it so difficult, is like, my parents were there, or I had these people around, and I had siblings, and I had friends, and it's like, okay, but really digging deep, and we don't have to necessarily do it today. I would, recommend doing it with a therapist, or just looking into it yourself if you're good at doing that, internal processing and stuff. But what were the really deep emotional connections that you had? Were your needs met as a kid? You know, were you seeking, did people tell you that they loved you? Did people tell you that they're proud of you? And that's one thing that we talked about a
Mm-hmm.
lot with Reggie in a previous episode, where it's like,
Right.
was I love you stated? Was I'm proud of you? Were
Yeah.
people there when you had an award ceremony, or were people there when you had a basketball game, or any of those things? Like, those things matter in your
Mm-hmm.
attachment style, and they will play out in your relationships whether you like it or not. So you got to look into
Yeah.
that type of stuff. And
Not only is it going to play out in your relationships, but it's going to play out into who you
absolutely.
become. Because there's a lot of things that in my childhood I didn't have happen to me, and I always tell myself I would never
Mhm.
be like that. So you're going to make a decision. You're either going to repeat the same cycles, or you're going to disrupt it, and you're not going to repeat the same cycles. You're going to set your own path, and whatever that looks like. So until next time, keep on applying those perspectives, growth, education, and collaboration. Man, I've been messing up the last part so much lately. That's a blooper for you guys.